it's kind of fitting. People who know me understand that life is an important issue for me. I'm a fan. Mike said I'm a family man, and Mike and I have known Mike my entire life. We go way back. So when we both were running for this position, not really running against each other, but I had announced, back when Judge Lang, before she decided to retire back in October, I was going to run against her because I saw different issues with this court that I wanted to address. Not that things were being done incorrectly, but I have a different philosophy. And it comes from, first I just want to talk briefly about who I am. I'm 47 years old. I've been married to my wife, Mary, since 1991. We have 7 children. And I can tell you, I would not be here without knowing that there is a God and without having faith. Because when I was 12 years old, I grew up in this community, lifelong resident. My father passed away. And, it's kind of it was a life-changing event. And this kind of, I started thinking about this. I hadn't thought about this in a while, but Judge Stallbrink was just up here, and we just tried a 30-year-old murder case. And in thinking about that murder occurred. I remember when it occurred because it was a horrific crime. Johnny Hodge was burned alive in his cell, a locked cell at the Indiana State Prison. And no one had ever brought this case or the person who did it to justice. And that person had gotten out of prison, and he was a member of the Aryan Brotherhood or KKK or white supremacist group, whichever you wish to call it. But he was allowed to get out and prey on the community and murder other people. And that's how the case was brought to me back in 2007. And I looked at the case, and in the last 7 years of dealing with that case, I've had to really think back, because I remember when that crime occurred my senior year at Marquette. And I just remember thinking about it and thinking about this case and dealing with it. I had to think about my father and just the choices I've made. And I look back on my life, and I know that God has a plan for me. And whether it's the plan to be the next judge of Superior One, I don't know. And if it is, that's great. If it's not, I'll still be a prosecutor, hopefully, with Mr. Jalager, Mr. Esparza will keep me on with any changes that happen. And my wife is a prosecutor. So I have to put that out there. But I've been privileged. My position, Judge Stallbrink, I do the DOC cases. I did not deal with the Department of Corrections. I've been doing them since 1995, except for 1 year where Rob Beckman moved over to circuit court when he was his first year. But there's a difference, and I haven't heard it today. There's a difference in offenders, violent versus nonviolent. Mm-hmm. And I know violent offenders because I've had to prosecute people who are already on death row. Right. I've had to sit across from serial killers and take their deposition and have these guys look right through me. I know when a person looks at me and they don't see a person, okay? Whether you're black or white or whatever your color is, they don't see a person. They look at you, and I know that people, and the thing about it is you treat everybody with respect. That's one thing I've learned. It's one thing my father taught me. It's one thing my grandfather taught me. But you always treat somebody with respect. I've never had an issue with anybody in the DOC that I prosecuted. My job as a prosecutor is to do justice. And I say that every time I start off a case, and my wife is a prosecutor as well now, and we've had the privilege, and this is the hard thing, is that if I become a judge, I'll never be able to practice with my wife again. And in the last 2 years, we've had the privilege of trying 4 cases together and bringing people to justice. But I've never been a person that you have to win. I've always been a person that you do justice. And what you do is you present all the evidence that you have to the jury, and you make your best argument and let them decide. But one of the things is you cannot be a person, a prosecutor who is a... 1 minute? Yes. I'm sorry. Well, you can't just take it and throw away the key. You can't do that. That's not the type of person you can be. But as I said, I was 12 years old. I had a choice. I made 2 decisions when I was 12. At my dad's funeral, I told him, and I thought about this just the other week, and I had forgotten about it. But I told myself, I'm going to Notre Dame. I did go to Notre Dame, and I graduated with honors. And I didn't want to go back to Notre Dame Law School. But my other thing I told myself is I wanted to marry either Donna Reed or Maureen O'Hara. and here's the thing. I woke up every day saying, I'm going to IU Law School. But every night, my heart told me, you're going to Notre Dame. And London kept popping into my head because I'd gone to London as a junior in undergrad. I loved London. So I ended up ultimately going against my better decision, which I never do, and went with my heart and went to Notre Dame Law School. I met my wife the first day of law school. We started dating in London, and so I know that God has a plan for me. And said whether it's to be a prosecutor for the next 20 years or to be the next judge for the next 20 years, I would ask for your support.
All right.